Sir.
What's up, bro?
How's it go? Where's the beard?
Huh?
Where's the beard?
I shaved it off last. It's only been a couple of days. It grows back too fast. Coach Hubbard, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How y'all doing?
Just trying
Good,
to survive during this quarantine time, right?
Man, it's crazy, ain't it?
Yeah. let me get you guys on gallery mode real quick.
All right.
Okay.
Well, we can get started if y'all want and get rolling.
That's fine.
Yeah, man. Sounds good.
Who knows when your kids are going to get back home, Steve, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I got the hourglass sitting next to me, man. It's already going.
We're playing with borrowed time right now.
Coach Hub, how you doing, man?
What's that, man? I missed it.
How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Man, it's all this doggone. I've actually worked too hard the last couple of days with all the kids and everything, not understanding the assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Do you both teach classes, actual content? What do you teach?
I don't have a core class. I teach communications, so it's a lot easier than doing math or science or history or anything like that.
Absolutely. Steve, what do you got?
Yeah, I got U.S. history, man. So I'm kind of in it, but of all the core star subjects, U.S. history is not bad. We generally have that 97, 96 passing and all that. So it's been going well, man. It's the same thing that everyone's dealing with, trying to get a hold of the ones that are hard to reach, but yeah, that's it.
I mean, history doesn't change, right? History is what it is.
Right?
No, except for modern history, which we're living through, right?
No doubt.
There's one day it'll be in the history books, I mean,
I'll tell you.
It's going to be like, but it's for sure going to be in the history books.
Right.
I just want to take time to say thank you guys, both of y'all, for hopping on. I know everybody's schedules looks different with all this online distance learning stuff, but I appreciate you guys coming on.
No problem.
We didn't get a chance to do introductions, so we got Coach Perez at Veterans Memorial and Coach Hubbard from Steel. Thanks again, guys. So basically, I just been talking to coaches. I think coaches have a lot of insight. I think what we do in our profession, we have the ability to change lives for the better and develop these relationships. And I just like to get to know more about the coaches and see what it is about them that allows them to develop these relationships. I think what we do is impactful. And so I appreciate you guys for what y'all do. First off, just with this COVID stuff, how are you guys staying sane? What are y'all doing for fun? Y'all doing anything, any binge watching Netflix or chores around the house? What do y'all got going on?
Man, I'm so glad that I don't care whether it's old sports, I'm watching. I find myself even watching pro wrestling because it's almost a sport, and they show that stuff live, So whatever is interesting, man.
Oh man, that's yeah. I mean, I've caught up on some Netflix stuff. I didn't even know any of these Netflix type shows, man. I've never really got a chance to sit down. You all know that, but I've been watching. Everyone's talking about Ozarks and and I watched Narcos, but that nothing big. That's what everyone else is doing. And other than that, just house activities. Set up a little pool in the backyard for the kids, and that's kind of one of the things I was going to talk about is just how it's been a chance for us to slow down and man, I've seen more of my kids than I have my oldest is 8 than I have in 8 years, man. And so no, it's been fun, man. Just trying to teach your own kids. I take that, I didn't realize, how fun that was going to be. Mm-hmm. My second grader is very independent. And so, she does well. She's kind of a high flyer. And my kindergartner, she's quite the opposite, man. She's shy. She's reserved. She's that kid in our classroom that doesn't cause the teacher any problems. So the teacher's doing a great job with her, but I see it in myself when I'm a teacher. You kind of have some kids that, you check on them and they're very polite and then you kind of move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where she's at. So teaching her how to read and do all that stuff and gaining her confidence in that, man, that's been a blast, man. never had a chance. And now, I don't have any boys. And so now I get how a lot of the coaches that have sons say that the greatest enjoyment is coaching your sons. And I worked with Coach Wacker, and he got to coach 3 of his sons. And he said it's just something you can't explain. Yeah. And so I guess I'm getting a kind of taste of it by teaching them just academic stuff at home. It's pretty cool, man. And I take enjoyment in that.
Man, and you know what? That's awesome because, it's just like the things that we do, as coaches, there's always a positive. Even in the losses that we take in games and stuff like that, there's always a positive. And that's a huge positive, to be able to turn around and spend more time with family, or whatever might be the case, so that's a great thing. That's a great way of learning, and the things that we do, because there's always a positive that come out of this. I got the best looking yard in the neighborhood.
During the school year and the season, you might not have a chance to work on those kind of things, huh? This whole COVID situation, it's kind of forced us all to slow down and, like you said, get to spend more time at home with the family. Like you said, my wife, I'm probably driving everybody at home crazy, just being home this much, right? But it's a blessing. It truly is, because as coaches, I don't think people fully grasp how many hours we put in, and they think basketball season ends and it's over, but really that's when the work begins, and then you're working through the summer. And so for us to be able to slow down and spend time with the family, I think it's been huge. That's a good point, Steve.
Yeah, it's been a blessing, man, and that's just got to keep on rolling, man. Keep on rolling, and stuff like this, Coach Alvarado, it gives us a chance to kind of get back to talk to some adults, and talk to them about things that we love and we're passionate about. For sure. And so it's awesome, man. I didn't watch those ones you sent to me. I didn't want to get some anxiety that y'all's conversations were so good that, I was going to lay an egg over here. So I'm going to watch them after we do this.
What I've learned so far through these things is, everybody's got different perspective and a different influences in their life, and got a different story to tell. So, it doesn't matter what you say. To me, I'm going to be as entertained as can be. We had Coach Martinez and Coach Bernal telling their stories, and then you had Gardner and Clark talking about the state tournament taken away, and then you have Brewer and Vela who played each other a million times and talk about some of the war stories. It's just been a blast. And so it doesn't matter what you talk about, Steve. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Right.
Let's talk about your childhood a little bit. Just growing up, what was it like for you guys? Everybody has a different upbringing. Maybe along the way, some influences that kind of guided you down this career path.
Yeah, it's fortunate enough to, and that's the crazy part about, things nowadays. You consider yourself fortunate if you go home, to a mom and a dad, and I was fortunate. I was a military brat, my dad got stationed at Randolph when he was basically finishing up, his Air Force career. So I've been in this area for a long time. I've enjoyed it, and I've seen it grow, and it's definitely grown, but it's been a good time. It really has. I went up and I actually graduated at Clemens High School, and yeah. But it's been a good time. I've seen a lot of the changes, and like I said, I've been fortunate, being in a military type family, so I can feel for that, that area is still around here as far as, we get a lot of military brats and everything at Steel. And it's great to see, it has some base and some foundation to you, and then going up through, college and everything, basically staying in the area, you see a lot of things develop, and you see a lot of things grow, you see a lot of changes and stuff like that. But as for a general area, I love the area. I think we have a good group, and I think it's a great bunch of coaches that we actually coach with. The fraternity here is nice, and I think we're earning the respect that a lot of times we may not get, from, the Dallas and the Houston area and everything. Cause, they have tons and tons of athletes, but I think we do a great job with the athletes that we have. And, I think we're making some noise in the last few years. I think we have, and we've been so close. You got some schools, like, Widener has been in the state championship. Brandeis had a real good this year. Cole's done really well. So I think we're making a name for ourselves. But as far as childhood and everything, I can't complain at all because, being a, military brat, like I said, and going home to a mom and a dad every single night, is fortunate. We're one of those families, and I ask my class this all the time. How many of y'all go home and you eat dinner together? And there's unfortunately there's not a whole lot of hands that go up. And I think that's a lost art because the teaching the class that I teach, communications, you see a lack of that now. And going home and eating at the dinner table is a time to be able to communicate. Unfortunately, there's times, and I guarantee you, I have students that go home and they may say one or two words to their parents that night, if anything, or if they even see them. So it's a fortunate time and it's an unfortunate time because sometimes stuff like that's kind of thrown out the window. The communication aspect. And I try to use that all the time. As far as us on the basketball court, communication is huge.
Yes, sir.
When you're talking on defense, you're talking so much, and you even on offense, it's a lost art. So I was fortunate enough to be brought up, and my dad went to night school. Toward the end, and we used to wait till he got home. We'd eat dinner at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, which is crazy. And it's a habit that I have to this day. I won't eat dinner till like 10:30. At night, so it's just a habit that I had, eating at 6 o'clock, man, I'll be hungry at 10, so it's my childhood. I've been fortunate.
I'll say this just to add to that. When I was a kid, my dad was a pretty strict guy. But they always made it a point that we eat dinner together at the table. And I thought that was huge, even growing up in a rougher neighborhood, he made sure that we were home and we were all together eating at a certain time. And that goes a long way. And you don't realize it as a kid. As a kid, you're like, whatever. But as an adult, you realize, what that was instilling in you.
Mm-hmm.
Steve?
Yeah, well, I had a question for Coach Hub, man. Is that gym still the same one at Clemens?
Man, they just got rid of it. It was just that it was that one. It's probably 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
They took it down. When they put the new gym up over there, then that changed it out, man. But they
haven't been that way.
Area, man.
You know the one I'm talking about, right? With the wooden.
Yes, that was it. It's like the parquet floor.
I wrote that down, man. I was like, dude, is that the same gym? I just had a quick one. Coach Hub, can you just talk about that Woodlake staff?
Man, that's awesome. I thought about that the other night, man. It's you always have, like you all were talking about before, you always have influences. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough and graduated from college in 2000. I got a job at Woodlake in 2001 in January. Got fortunate enough halfway through the year and get the job. But ended up going there to a staff that ends up now being, it's like an all-star staff. It was really a great time. The guy that ran the whole place was named Coach Baker. And he's retired now up in the Dallas area with his kids and family in the area. And I couldn't have been with a better person to start things off. When I first got there, no lie, when I first got there, I was like, because, you talking about demanding Coach Baker, and then there's, and we'll talk about him, there's Coach Danaher, Coach Mendoza, all the guys that right now, they're over there at Veterans with Steve. Right. And those two guys, Coach Mulder, who's over at Clemens, a great bunch of guys that have done really well for themselves. But I can tell you right now, in the first week that I was there, holy smokes, Coach, they were so like, it seemed like arrogant and demanding. I was like, in a week's time, I'm like, man, I'm not sure I can do this. They're crazy. They're just real adamant, about stuff. But, I would not trade it for the world. And then the very next year, Coach Danaher, not Coach Danaher, but Coach Sines came along. The guys, the head coach of, football and athletic coordinator there still. And he came along. So we learned a ton. And we really did, in the things that they did, and how you handle the kids, real structured. And you really had the things, kind of just, step by step, this is how you should handle it. Because even in PE, we literally, we had some of the best PE classes, which is crazy because a lot of people don't take a lot of pride in PE, just roll the ball out. Yeah. But man, we would have we'd have 60 kids in a class. and literally have the kids lined up. And we would just go to the first person in line and say, okay, who's absent, who's absent, who's absent. We're done with roll in about 15 seconds just by asking those. We did jumping jacks all together, had to start and stop at the same time. If we didn't, then we had to start all over again. But it was real military-like and structured-like. But, it's stuff that I wouldn't pass up. I tell people all the time, at first I thought Coach Bake I'm like just real arrogant. But, man, there's so many things that I took from the way he did things. I would not have rather started under anybody, ever. And then the whole Judson experience, honestly, was really good because that's when Coach Perez and everything. I met all those guys over there. So, being a person that graduated from Clemens and then realizing, I had to do my student teaching and everything in the Judson district. And then sure enough, I got a job in the Judson district. That's the last thing that I wanted, being a person that graduated from Clemens. But, I was that guy. I was that guy come 2001. Whoop, whoop, right?
Well, at least it wasn't Roosevelt, man. That would have been tough because that was really the guys that we had it out for, man, when I was in school. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, man, because I didn't even realize that when you started, you had all those guys. I forgot it, that you had Mulder on the staff, and I knew Richard was there. I didn't know if y'all were there at the exact same time. And I knew you were there with David, and then I know you had another student teacher. I can't remember his name. I think it was Mike Gonzalez.
Man, that's as far as great times, I will tell you that's probably the story that I tell the most as far as flat out fun. I'm sure Mike's told you. I'm gonna tell Coach Alvarado, you're gonna love this. But Mike Gonzalez, his assistant, had just gotten there as a student teacher and stuff like that. And and the school is not the newest. It was fairly new, but we had to crank up the baskets. It wasn't a push a button or anything like that. So we literally had a crank. But we also had a big drill that we used, So, but we had both. This case, the drill was, doing something else. And sure enough, I told Coach Gonzalez, I said, man, we got to get the baskets up over there. He's like, oh, okay. I said, here's the crank. So I went and let him go out there, and I let him. He must have been cranking for darn 10 minutes, trying to get that one basket up. And then his back was turned, so I got to the basket behind him, and I had the drill. So he's cranking it up, sweating. And next thing you hear is zzz, and he turned around and he looked back. He was like, what? I'm like, man, my bad. I forgot to tell you we had a drill for this.
Just breaking them in, just initiating.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, now my question was Mike wearing these colorful pants at the time when he was doing it? I love giving him a hard time.
Yeah, man, but that's why I just thought, I know how big of an influence that was and all that stuff. So I thought I had to hit you up with that Woodlake stamp. I know.
That's good stuff. Did you ask Mikey about that day, Steve, about him cranking the backboard? Has he talked about it?
Yeah, we've talked about it probably 2 or 3 times, man. It's a good one, man. It's a good one. But hey, I just kind of want to get the same thing. Talking about growing up, man, and influences, kind of similar. Coach Hubb, my dad he grew up here in the west side of San Antonio, and then he moved up with his mom. I guess his dad passed real early, and he moved up north, and with his stepdad, my grandpa that I knew of, and he moved to New York, and then eventually he joins the military. And he did 26 years in the Air Force. So kind of the same upbringing where, you try to go to bed early, try to get up early and do stuff, even though I wasn't a very listening teenager at times. But, kind of the same thing. And that's how we ended up back over here is he retired in Missouri. Like I moved around a bunch, but I got out, landed here in Converse in first or second grade, and has been here ever since. And so it's kind of been the same thing. Went to Judson, did all that stuff, and played for Coach Wacker, and that was a big influence, And I guess I don't want to cut off my parents as being such a great influence because they were. When he made a comment to me, this was when I went into the business world. I went to UTSA. I played at Judson, like I said, and biggest mistake I ever made was not taking a I was offered a chance to go to Trinity, academic and play ball. And, I didn't do it. And I remember going on campus and looking around, and I was like, seeing all those nice cars and all that stuff. And I was like, man, I really don't know about this type of place. And so one of my older brothers, he had a baseball scholarship. My dad told me in high school he could throw a 90-mile-per-hour fastball, 90-something. And he was offered, and he didn't go. And so I'm thinking like, well, maybe that's, I'll just go into whatever, and just go into the business world. And so I got an accounting degree, and I did accounting for a couple of years. And then I realized, I just didn't want to do it. And so I got alternative certified and went into teaching and coaching. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so first job is at Kirby Middle School. I had an opportunity when Hubbard was still at Wood Lake with Danaher and all those guys. And so it was just fun, and didn't get to know Baker, but just heard so many good things about him. And man, y'all's teams performed. Goodness gracious, dude. I think I remember one time it was 52-0 in the A game and 50-6 in the B team football game. And to go, it was just a drumming, man. And it was nothing fancy. I'm not sure if the ball was in the air longer than however long it took to pitch the ball to your running back. I mean, it was straight downhill. Right? And that's the worst thing, man. You're sitting there trying to bark up, this and that. Your linebackers are on their face because they've been cut. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're looking at the clock and, you're out of any type of adjustments. You've got, there is no such thing as a second string linebacker in middle school. That kid's probably got his helmet on backwards. But, that first job's at Kirby, and I got to work with Coach Breimer. He was hard-nosed. You knew him. He learned under Baker, and he was tough, but, was good tough. And then I had the chance to work with David, who had come over from Wood Lake. And I took away from his organization. He always kept a binder of stuff, and he would always just add stuff to it, and I would notice that little thing. And that's one of the things that I constantly and still working on is trying to get organized. Coach Gonzalez is really organized. And so that's, one of those things that I'm constantly trying to work on. But, David's quiet, and I don't think during the whole football season he said more than 2 or 3 words to me. Not in a bad way. That's just his personality. And then come basketball season, Coach Breimer told Coach Science, hey, I want you to do the A-team, 8th grade A-team. And David told me this story later on. Told Coach Breimer, no, Steve needs to do it because he wants to be a head basketball coach. And the only way he's going to learn is by doing it. Yep. And so not even really, like I said, talking to him very much, he was looking out for me, and he had that vision, just such a good person. And, and we bonded, man, so much during that basketball season, good times, man, just, how it is just, and that's what thing, man, I don't know, Coach Alvarado, I guess, if you had a chance to coach at the middle school level, but did you get a chance, Coach Alvarado?
Yes, sir. I started at the middle school. I was out of my comfort zone with football, but I did as best as I could, and had some guys that trusted me with the program. So I did the A-team, 7th graders, which was positive. And one thing I didn't realize that both of you started at the middle schools. And so I guess if you had some advice for coaches who aspire to be head basketball coaches at the varsity level, which you guys both work at big schools and outstanding programs, what would be something you'd want to tell younger coaches that are maybe at the middle school now, but are thinking down the road they do want to do that? Because sometimes coaches feel like they're stuck at the middle schools, and it doesn't always have to be the case.
Right. Yeah, that's what I kind of was alluding to, man. And it all starts at different places for people, but like you said, you start with football, the state of Texas. And so you did your best, and that, I think, working those years of football, I know, Coach Hubb, I believe you still help out in the program over there at Steele, if I'm correct. but it teaches you a lot about discipline, getting out there, and you really got to have a great plan when you're dealing with so many numbers.
Yeah.
And it's just the amount of time you got to put in with just padding kids up and doing all that stuff. And then you got to get out of your comfort zone, because a lot of us, like you said, want to be a head coach. Well, of course you're comfortable in basketball, but then you find yourself doing football. You find yourself doing track. I mean, I got stuck with the distance runners, hurdlers, and I had no clue, but it adds to your tool, your tool belt, toolbox, whatever you want to say. And it was quite an experience. I don't think we would have been here without it, because it gives you an idea of where it starts at, and your expectations for a 7th and 8th grader, and then you get to kind of see the evolution from them from 7th grade to when they graduate. And so there it was at Kirby Middle School, and then and that's where I was going to go back to kind of one of the influences. I remember Coach Wacker was at Kirby Middle School to give a speech. I think back then it was TAC, or I don't know, or whatever the state assessment was, TOS or whatever it is. And he's there to give a speech, and man, he goes into full Wacker mode. Man, that guy is fired up, dude. And those kids probably are thinking, like, who is this 6'9" giant screaming at me right now? And when it's over, he comes and talks to me, and some kid walks up and he goes, I just want to shake your hand. You're the tallest guy I've ever seen. And he goes, well, thank you, and he says that and he walks off. And I made just some comment like, man, if that kid could just figure it out, he'd have a chance. And Coach Wacker stopped me right there and goes, Steve, he doesn't have your parents. And I still remember that to this day, where, he said, you had 2 parents that cared about you. They had a plan, and they raised you the right way. You don't know what he's living with. And so you have to be his parent. And so every kid just needs an opportunity. Yep. And I remember that. And so speaking about that was a big influence. And then going to BRAC was a good experience. Coach Huey did a good job. His method was way different. It gave me an opportunity to work with somebody that was a lot different than what I was used to with that Judson. But it was a different clientele, man. It's very, very, very tough neighborhoods, and we all can relate to, different environments that we've been in, and the type of kid that comes with it. And they're all great kids, man. They all, once you've had a chance to kind of work at different schools, you start to realize that they're all the same, man. There's different variables, but it was great. And Coach Huey was tough, man. He was straight up in their face. Then went to Judson, worked with Coach Wacker, went back to Brackenridge with Coach Isaac, and good staff there, man. Coach Slattery did a good job. Coach Hall's been awesome. There's so many guys there. Coach Furr, a good person. And then got a chance to meet up with a whole bunch of Judson guys on the veteran staff. So that's kind of the story of where I came from and how I'm sitting where I'm at now.
I will tell you that you and Coach Sines almost gave me the worst loss of my basketball career. I don't know if you remember that game, because we came in there at Woodlake and just loaded and just mauling people. And Sines had just left, Woodlake, and we talked a lot. He's a football guy. He'll coach his face off in basketball, but he's not really a basketball guy. So when he went, I'm like, man, I told him flat out, there's no way you're beating us. And man, y'all had us for like 3 quarters, and I'm like, I was like, this ain't happening. But y'all had us, man. It was a great time.
Yeah, it was a good game, man. And I think that's also the 8th grade year where Jordan Clarkson and Roberson were at Metzger. And so, dude, it was some good basketball being played. Yep. Little did we know those guys would end up in the NBA, man.
Yep. Yeah, and going back to your middle school, I'll tell guys now that if you have the opportunity to start somewhere, that's where you start. Because you lay in the foundation. You have a much better appreciation for the job that you end up doing at the high school if you go through and do the steps at the middle school.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, you have to coach. You coach football, you coach basketball, you coach track.
Yes,
okay, you learn a whole lot of that stuff. I remember, you talking about breaking it down. The kids don't know. It's talking about doing the little things. Sometimes we get kids, in the high school level, and we tell them to run this, do this, and they don't know how. Hey, go set a screen. How you set a screen? What do you do? How do you set up the screen? What do you mean set up a screen? They never taught that because it's assumed that they know it.
Right.
When you get to the middle school level, that's when that stuff is taught, so you're hoping, so it gives you a better appreciation of that. I can remember flat out, telling the kids, okay, put your, all your pads on and all that stuff. Man, I had a kid running out to the football field. He's ready to go, but his tailbone pad was in the front. I'm supposed to cover something else. so but it's my fault because I never taught him, So you lay the foundation right there. It's a great thing, and as far as us, I think that's a great thing about what we do, because when I was at Woodlake, I was told to coach track and I was told to coach pole vault. Ooh. And of course I was like, okay, yes sir, yes, got it. I'm like, I have no idea what to do with pole vault, but I go home, I check it out, but that's the thing about it. Coaches coach.
For sure.
That's what they do, and so it's just a matter of, whatever you're put in front of you, that's what you do. You coaches coach.
Yes, sir. And I think like in middle school, well, my biggest takeaway was when I was doing something, like you said, I didn't know very well, like pole vault. So when I did football or I did track, I didn't know the least, right? So studying it and then learning how to coach it to where the kids understand it. You just kind of learn how to coach things. And then those are the kind of things that have helped along the way, learning how to take this message and get this kid to understand what I want him to do.
Yep.
It's gone a long way. And like I said, you can see it in both of you guys. It's helped a lot. So let's talk a little bit about, like Steve, how long you been at Vets as a head coach?
4 years. This was our 4th year. And so it's been, I guess I compare it to when you get married and then if you have a child or something, you always think you're ready until you're there. And then you're like, man, I'm not sure if I'm ready. And, I remember talking to telling Coach Wacker, hey, I'm getting married. An hour and a half later, after I told him that, he talked to me about being a husband. And then you're standing there and you get married and like, man, I don't know if I'm to be a husband, but then you figure it out. And then, you find out, hey, wife's pregnant, and I don't know anything about being a dad. Well, you figure it out. And then, you prep and you got all these mentors and you do everything you can. You take all these notes and then you walk into the door and you're the man. The good thing about it is I've had Coach Gonzalez there with me, and he talks to me about, hey, these are some of the things that I did that worked for me. Some of the things I did that did not work for me. I've learned a lot, man. It's been fun. I tell you what, it's a great experience. We have a very good staff, just, from Coach Mendoza down. But, I think, the biggest thing that I've taken away from this is culture. I felt like we were moving in the right direction. The first year was kind of, taking the blinders off and, but fortunately we were JV and, and we're just getting after it. And it felt kind of the same. I've been a JV coach, and then that next year we went varsity a year earlier than expected. And it was fun, man. It was interesting. Eyes wide open, man. Coach Rock used to talk to me about, hey, this seat right here, this is the hot seat. This is the head coach. This guy right here sitting next to me, it's a little bit warmer. This guy I usually listen to, he's a JV guy. And then that seat over there is the freshman A-team coach. And that idea usually goes through the JV guy before it gets to me. And so that it was fun, man. I talked to Coach Gonzalez about that, and I had a real good freshman coach, as I do now, Lawrence Bailey, who's now up in Austin area. And so it was a real good experience, a little bit young, but I thought we were building a culture in the right direction. did some character classes and did some real hard work, and the kids were responding well. And then that next year, I thought again our culture was good. And then this is where I think what I'm trying to allude to is I felt like this year I did not quite have the culture down as well as I wanted to. When you finish your season, you always reflect and say, did this team reach its potential? Did it get as far as it could go? And come down to it, man, we were 7-7. I mean, everyone knows we were in the same district. We were 7-7. If we win our last 2 games, we have a great. I mean, it was at least end up in a playoff game or in the playoffs straight up, and we didn't come through with it. And so, I got out of that, and we were right there. And I read something. I'm reading a book, Beyond the Game, and that's what I had. Matter of fact, I talked to Coach Hubb probably less than a week ago, asking him what is he doing with his kids, and that'll be another conversation, I guess, in a little while. But it talked about teams with discipline win in the fourth quarter, and it just hit me again. I already knew it. I already knew that the culture wasn't as good as it should have been this year, and I look back, and I had a young team coming into this year. I started a sophomore, 3 juniors, and 1 senior. And I didn't do any character classes. This is the first time in my 15 years of coaching I didn't do a character class. I skipped right over it, and it's so obvious. And I just went straight to skill work. And then in that book, it read about, teams don't lose because of lack of skill, for the most part. Because you can make people who are not as skilled be better when they have discipline, when they're hardworking, when they have great character, when they love their teammates, when they care about winning or losing. And so those were some of the things that I've got on my laptop right now that I'm still working on. And that's what I've taken away from my 4 years here is I thought we were moving in the right direction. I know we were moving in the right direction. The first 3 years, culture-wise, it's just last year I dropped the ball on it. And this whole off season right now, because of the situation we're in, is breaking down this book, and it's straight up character class. And that's when I Zoom with the kids on Wednesday, that's I talk a lot about the character class in there, and of course some basketball, but it's mainly character. So that's kind of been my experience.
Just kudos to you, right? I mean, as a coach, being able to look at yourself in the mirror and reflect and say, you know what, I could have done this, and I kind of maybe we dropped the ball here or there. That's how coaches get better, right? When they can acknowledge that maybe we could have done better in this area. So that's much respect to you, Steve, for that. Coach Hubbard, things at Still, how long you been there?
Well, I've been at Still, it's the 06-07, so it's been 15, I guess, years. It's been 9 years already as a head coach, but this will be my 10th coming up. And it's just a lot of stuff that, Steve said pertains, but it was a culture change for us, when we took over. We took over a team, and 6-27, I believe the record was, whenever I was JV coach and my assistant coach Perez was freshman coach, and we were just not very good, but to me, and Coach Perez for that matter, we thought we had, the nucleus for it. In other words, the kids, and just weren't performing. A big culture change for us was we just had to make basketball important. I'll never forget, we 5th period, it was 4th period back then is when athletics was, and that's when football and basketball both have their athletic period. And whether you're in class or whatever, you see people sprinting through the hallways, to get to athletics. And it's the football guys, and the basketball guys were, basically in the chill walk, and so to me, it's like, that's but that's what we did then. And it was accepted. That's one of the things that we had to change. One of the first things I asked him is football more important? than basketball. And of course the kids are like saying, no, no, no. Then why is it they sprint by you guys as you guys getting your chill walk and you're trying to get to athletics, So little things like that, which we had to change. And then we had to make it to where they believed in themselves, and it took, we were fortunate, our very first year, 11-12, we turned around and got in the playoffs in the last we had a play-in game with New Braunfels and ended up beating them at the buzzer, to get in the playoffs, So that was a huge point for us because, you take a team that had no confidence, and won 6 games the previous year, and then you turn around and get in the playoffs, and that was it for us, and it really was it for us because after that we got blown up by like 30 by Churchill, who was really good in the first round, but it was a great time just to get into the playoffs, but the culture was changing, and then things became important, and then the rest is history. 12-13, we got in there and we started a little bit slow, which we tend to do. But we finished strong, and the next thing you know, we're in the Final Four, in the state tournament in our second year, But the biggest thing was just the culture change, And from that point on, now we just went to the state tournament. Now everybody wants to be playing basketball still. Now it's important, So that's where it's. But the thing, complacency sets in a lot of times. Even after our 12-13 year, we just went to state. And then, you figure the next year we had a decent amount of guys coming back, but we got complacent. We just thought okay, we're this good. To me, and we kind of did it this year, to be honest with you. I went to state, last year, but this year we weren't as good. We got in playoffs and everything, lost. But complacency sets in, and then you're not hungry. You've got to be the hunter and not the hunted. And it doesn't matter what you've done. You've got to figure out a way to stay hungry. And that's where, I think that we lacked a little bit this year is that the hunger, and the development. We did a lot of the same things, but, even guys, you always have to have leaders on your team, that do the things that, you maybe don't even see. You got 4 or 6 eyes, looking around as coaches, but when you got tons and tons of eyes of, it's always great to have that athlete that's going to get on those other. I always say there's got to be a jerk in the group, and there's always got to be a jerk in the group. And, you may think that person, God, that guy's such a jerk. He's not a jerk. He's going to be your friend later on because you're going to realize what he did for you now, and that's going to help you later on, So, we've been fortunate. We've had great kids, and getting those kids to do the right things and accept what's important, whether it be the grades and all that stuff has been the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge for us is to win a mental game because we're going to have athletes. We have athletes, they just come through the doors. We have athletes. It's just a matter of getting those guys to do the right things and work hard, and that's a whole lot harder than people realize. You had guys in the NBA, I can't remember the guy, Del Harris, that went to the Lakers and coached those guys when they had Gary Payton, Karl Malone supposed to be the squad, and things didn't work out so well. You got, guys like Phil Jackson that come in there and take a whole bunch of studs, but he's able to make them do the right things, so that's something that, that we have to understand that we've got to win that mental game, or it doesn't matter what kind of talent you have. I'll take a mentally strong team and I'll like our chances versus just a simply athletic team that's not going to work hard.
Absolutely. And Coach Perez, things that you've learned as far as culture, what are some of the more important things that you think moving forward, right, to make sure we implement those things?
Yeah, well, that's what for culture, man, that's what, when I'm looking at this is this is our plan. We're going to break it down into five societal issues. We're going to talk about peer pressure, and these are things that I'm on week 6 of it right now. And so then when I'm done with it, we're basically making up a contract. And so that way our culture is, is based on positive peer pressure, being respectful, entitlement, earn everything every day, accountability. And I think that's what, that to me is the one that I'm going to highlight the most is accountability. is the fact that you've been given a task and we want you to do it. And this Google Classroom thing has been great because, I mean, it's right there in front of me, showing whether you've done your character responses or not.
Yeah.
To type up a little Google form. And so those are the type of things that I'm going to hit on is on your accountability, knowing that you're doing what you need to do, and then character. And those are the five things that we're going to hammer out as our culture. You're going to be strong in these 5 areas. And that's what setting goals, that was the assignment this week. Was you had to set 2 specific goals, and then you had to have 3 steps to achieving those goals. And that's the blueprint. Like, I am specifically, if you want to do better in class, that doesn't mean just study hard. What does that mean? That means, okay, I'm going to sit in the first 2 rows of the classroom. I'm going to have my supplies every single day, and I'm going to take notes. So it had to be something specific. I want to be better. I want to be a better basketball player. Okay, so what do you need to do? I need to work on finishing at the rim. I need to work on my ball handling. I need to condition better. So those are like, well, what are you going to do to condition better? Okay, so now it's really teaching kids how to set goals. And so that's kind of what we're doing, because at the end of it, it's about knowing yourself and then knowing what you can and you cannot do and how you fit into the team. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of our end game. And that's what's going to be week 9 of the program is now that we know ourselves, and I was talking with Coach Gonzalez with this, is last week it was peer pressure and disrespect. This week it's entitlement and accountability. The next week it'll be character and home life. And we're hitting it so hard, just those 2 words, is now they know the definition of the word. Like if I walk into the gym and I say, hey, man, you're acting like you're entitled to something. Well, before we did this, they didn't even know what the word meant.
Yeah.
Like if I say, hey, man, are you accountable? I mean, they've heard it, but they don't know the definition of it. And so those are the things where we're breaking it down, and you truly have to give me a definition of what it is and then give me some examples of your life. And so I provided some things for them. And I gave them an example. I said, tell me who you are. And so, a good thing about it is it made me write something down. And I said, I'm a man that will give today the best effort it deserves. I will do what needs to be done for my wife and kids today. I will meet every responsibility of my job using my faith and my past experiences to guide my actions. And so I put that into the question. And I said, tell me who you are. And I put that down as an example of core values. I gave them an example. I'm honest, fair, consistent. There will be respect, and I will be thought out. And I said, tell me what your core values are. And so those are the type of questions that they faced this week. And it's pretty cool because you see people that they struggle with it, and you see some kids that are just knocking it out of the water. And they're right. Both of them are just as right as the other person. Mm-hmm. Because if they're struggling with it, that's just where they're at right now. Yeah. And it's our job to show them how to do it. And it was cool, Coach Hub, if you don't mind. I called him and just asked him what is he doing with his kids, and he said, "Well, I'm doing coaching
changes lives.
Changes lives." And dude, I called Coach Mendoza and said, "Hey, can you give me all those lessons?" And that's what I'm going to do next. But can you kind of talk about what you're doing with them?
Yeah, it's that's it. What you were saying all kind of goes back to our last week. Last week we were dealing with attitude, and those are all like the key words, the attitude, the character this week for us. But last week on the attitude kind of fits in with the way we are in society today. It was a story about the Arabian horse, and you guys probably heard that, where the guy trains the Arabian horse, 100 of them. And long story short, he takes him out in the desert after he's trained them all, and he'd already trained them all to respond to the little trumpet sound that he makes, with the trumpet, So the horses get taken to the desert. They're thirsty. They see some water in the distance, and they haven't had water in a long time. So he opens up the corral, and they go flying out the gates, and they're running toward the water. And he waits till they're about, a good 100 feet from the doggone water and blows a trumpet. and one of those horses came back, and that's how they created the Arabian strain of horses from that horse, which is, obviously, some of the better horses, around. But to me, that's like what we're doing right now is, no one could have predicted this virus coming along. And right now it's the same type of thing. We let them all go. Our kids are out there. Now, who's going to respond to the way you're supposed to do things? Who's going to respond to the lessons and everything that we're putting out there for them? So it's real similar, how you let them go, but we didn't do it on purpose. We let them go, but who's going to react to the way things are supposed to be? I tell the kids all the time, you guys can all pass the paper test. I ask you a question and you guys got an answer, but do you do it? Do you show it? Everybody can tell me what I want to hear, but can you show me what I want to see? That's a big thing for us. But yeah, we're doing the same type of thing, whether it be we're just, and the main part of it is for us right now is we want to interact with our kids. We don't want it to be where, we hear this kid's doing something, that we hadn't talked to him in a month, so like, hey, how's this kid doing? Oh, he's doing fine, but we don't know that, so it's a matter of interacting, because then I think as long as you're making that contact with them, I think they're having that feeling of important, and they need that, unfortunately, and I think it's in all of our situations and a lot of coaches' situations, but there's times when we are what they look forward to. So in other words, when we say hi to that kid when they come into the gym, that might be what they look for, in a day, because they unfortunately, they may go home and not get attention that they want to need, so it's really good for us to do that. It's not only, and this is a thing that, some coaches, tend to allow to happen, which is crazy as well, but and it's not my guy that scores 30 points a game. It's 1 or 2 rebounds, but it's all of them. You got to show that importance to all of them, because this is, unfortunately, these days, our kids do, they need us in those situations, and there's nothing better, than, 10 years down the line, I tell my kids all the time, I'm not going to ask you 10 years down the line, how's basketball going? I'm going to ask you how you're doing, because basketball most likely is not even in the future anymore, so, it's a matter, that's why it says coaching to change lives. It didn't say coaching to change football, coaching to change basketball, baseball, volleyball, soccer, anything like that. It's coaching to change lives, and that's the big picture in what we're doing. Hopefully we're teaching our kids, life lessons, and it doesn't all have to do, yes, wins are awesome, and it's a lot more fun at times, but like even our first year when we went to state, we were 25-13. That's 12, 13 times that we got better. Yep. It wasn't a matter, that's, we have to use it that way, but it's living in their heads. And I guarantee you, it's even satisfying, when you make, like this year, we weren't as successful as we wanted to be, got to the playoffs, didn't do as well, but it's still a successful season when you have those kids come back telling you how well they're doing. At least, the things that we taught them kind of stuck in their head. There's bigger things, and this is how it's going to sound crazy. There's bigger things than coming home with that state championship. That'd be great, but there are bigger things.
well, that's you guys kind of alluded to what I wanted to ask next. Well, first off, I just want to say it's all great stuff. I think it's important that people get to hear and see that. I mean, not everybody understands. Like coaches, we genuinely care about our kids and their well-being and them becoming better men. Obviously, we want them to become better basketball players and better athletes, but the goal is to help prepare them for life after this is all done. And so for people in the public to hear and see your thought process, I think is important. I think it's really good that you guys are sharing that information. But alluding to what you were saying earlier, it's great. At the end of the day, everybody's goal, win a state championship as a team. But what can you guys give me some examples? You don't have to use names or anything, just examples of moments in your coaching career where you realize, what we do can be more impactful than just wins and losses in a kid's life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I always have one that sticks out. There's all kinds of ones, but young, I guess, third year coaching, went from Kirby to Brackenridge, and used to do it all the time. And we all have some trick we have to motivate kids. Get them all on the line when that first progress report comes out. And they're all lined up, and you call out their name in order, and they step out, and you're like, you wouldn't be playing today if we had a game, and they step back. And then, I'd always follow it up with, what is your plan to get your grades to be eligible? And they'd mumble some stuff, whatever. It was the shame game, And then I got to this kid, but he stepped out, and I was like, same thing, man. Dude, you've got 7 classes. You're only passing athletics. What in the world? I'm giving it to him. What is your plan to pass? How are you going to get eligible? He goes, Coach, my mom's in jail and my dad don't give a S. And I was like, all right, well, step back. I just kept on going, man. But, it hit me, and again, it just goes back. And man, it's the thing that is, and I think it shows a lot, is when I was at Brackenridge, I was the hatchet man. I did all the tryouts, and I did the cuts of people that moved up from the freshman level to JV level. Coach Isaac used to con me into it, man. He would always say, because how many seniors actually try out for a team, or how many seniors do you really have to cut or remove from the program, however you want to put it. And so he goes, he would always go like this, hey, Steve, I'll handle the senior guys and you handle the other classmen. I had everybody. I would always be the guy like, hey, if you're not on time, if you're not dressed, you got to be on the line by the time the tardy bell rings, that run it in thing over here at Veterans. But at Brackenridge, I think it was 2 minutes. After the bell rang, you had 2 minutes to be dressed. And so, I'd keep track of all that stuff. And so you had to let people go, and some of them you built a relationship with, but they were missing Saturday practice. They would take off, for various reasons, some of them had to work, some of them, whatever. But, you work with them as much as you can. It was a communication. I remember one time I had a kid come back, he got a haircut, and he came back to practice with a haircut. And I was like, dude, why are you late? I knew why he was late. Got a haircut, and it was just one of those things. And I had to remove a few of those kids, but they would always stop and they'd still talk to me in the hallway. And they'd say, how you doing? Hey, thanks for looking. And I'd still ask, what's up? I remember another one at Brackenridge. He didn't even play his senior year. He was a piece his junior year, but he went to football his senior year and then never came back to basketball. So it was basketball season. Football season was over, and he got some reps. He played safety, and he was sitting on the bench, and I was going to athletics, and I was like, hey, what are you doing? And he was like, man, I don't know about this, man. I don't know about school. And I was like, dude, you are literally like 3 months away from graduating. I said, picture your parents' face when you walk across the stage. Because his dad owned a construction business. I don't even know, spoke very little English. I'd met him a couple times because he was in the program for 3 years. And I was like, dude, like, they expect you to graduate. That's what you're here for. I said, look, whatever you're going through, man, just, talk to me about it. Talk to anybody about it. But get through this. Because 3 months from now, man, you don't have to be here no more. But it's about finishing something, dude. Finish it out. You're too close and you're too smart. Like, you're not a dumb kid. And he finished it. And I've seen him once or twice out over here on the southeast side. And he stops and he takes a picture. Like, he's like, I want to take a picture with you. And, social media, I guess I don't have any of that stuff. But that's like little stuff that, and that's someone who said thank you. Think about all the kids that you've influenced that don't say thank you. Mm-hmm. That they don't even know that what you, Marcus, and you, Lonny, have talked to them about, that it's in there. And all they know is when times get tough, they've been taught to respond like this. Mm-hmm. And those are just two stories, but I'm sure you guys got, just many also. So those are two that stood out to me.
Yeah, that's to me, that's what it's all about. I think that's why we do what we do, for stories like that, and things like that. The difference that you make, people always ask me, hey, why do you teach? Because I want to make a difference. Why do you coach? Because I want to make a difference. And it really comes down to, this is who we are. This is what we do. The great teachers are great coaches as well. So I guarantee you, I go into Steve's classroom, Marcus, I go in your classroom. It's the same. You care. Unfortunately, there are probably some people that go to class, and yes, we have some that go to class and they don't. It's like, how do you go and teach when you don't even like kids? Yeah. But unfortunately, there are people that are like that. But for us, because we care, I had to find this as I was looking for a second ago. This is literally, I want to say about a week and a half ago. This is a kid that graduated, played ball for us probably 6-7 years ago. And it's big, huge text, but I'll read this part that I want y'all to realize this is what we're talking about. He says, I want to say thank you to you and Coach Herrera for helping shape me into what I am today. I appreciate every single day that we've shared together and the things I picked up from you and the coaching staff. I will never forget. You guys taught me to not only be a good athlete, but to be a good person in general. Life is bigger than basketball, and it took me to when I got to college to figure it out. But that's the type thing that, that you want, when the kids go out, because unfortunately I'd love to say every single one of them going to be playing NBA, but that's not the case. And we realize that. They at the time, most of the time, don't realize that, but, it is what it is. And, there's bigger things, and this is life lessons that, that we're trying to teach them, and this is a lot of times, it kind of like that seed that hits the concrete. It's not going to grow, but it's not for us for lack of throwing out the net. We're going to try and throw out the net and catch what we can, and those that catch soon, that's a great thing, but there's a lot of them that'll catch it later.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful stuff, guys. I appreciate y'all sharing those stories. I mean, everybody's got different stories similar. I mean, at the end of the day, just the relationships you build and the influence you have on their lives, like you guys said, and like Steve mentioned, some of them don't even realize it yet, right? It's something that happens a few years down the line, and then eventually it'll click, and then they say, you know what? This is all the stuff that we did in athletics, and I didn't really like it at the time, but coach was holding us accountable and to a certain standard. This is really paying off in my family life or in my job, just stuff like that. And so it's a blessing to be able to do what we do. And for those that are in it for the right reasons and the kids that are with those types of people benefit greatly from them. Yeah. Like everybody's got a different situation. Every school's a little different. Demographics are a little different. But all the kids they need somebody, right? So that's a beautiful thing. Let's talk a little bit about real quick, like best player you've ever coached against, just off the top of your head.
Oh, geez, I would have to say, man, there's a few, but if there's one that killed us, it was in 2016 in the state semifinals. This dude named Marcus Boland that had 47 dunks against us. He killed us. I mean, we couldn't do anything with him. We just, I was begging for 3 seconds, but they wouldn't give us one. So, I mean, he's one that hurt us really, really bad.
Steve?
Yeah, well, heck, Coach, you've been living my life for 2 years. We've gone from Jackson to Phillips. I mean, and those guys, they're just darn good, man. And it kind of one of those things, man, where it's just been tough. You try to put two on somebody, and then they've got some other guy that can attack the rim. So, and those guys were really good. But one guy that really just totally took over the second half was the youngster from Bernie. and I don't want to mispronounce his name. Last year, their point guard.
Yeah.
Coach,
I can't say his name. I don't know how to pronounce his name either.
21 on us in the second half, and it was a close game, and we did it. We were sending two at him, full court, get the ball out of his hands, and then he'd find a way to get the ball back, and he was getting to the line. I mean, it was just
– he was crafty. It wasn't
very fun.
He wasn't very he wasn't super quick or anything. He was just smart and crafty and knew how to play the game.
Oh yeah, and that's I think was more frustrating than actually dealing with the youngsters from Wagner, because I mean we saw it right there in front of us, the amount of talent that they have and how well Coach Clark does with them. And then but the guy from Barney, I was like, man, we can stay in front of this guy, but I just couldn't do it, man. It was frustrating. And you know, when I was at Judson, of course, Roberson and Clarkson, but we had so many athletes too that, you know, we gave them, you know, really good games.
Yeah.
But that was the guy that stood out to me.
What I did want to ask Coach Hubbard, just real quick, you know, Gerald Liddell, and he's playing at Texas right now. Just talk real briefly about, you know, when you first met him till he graduated, you know, just a quick story about his development, and then what you see now with him over at Texas with, you know, under Shaka Smart, and then how he's developed over there.
You know, that's funny. That's a crazy story. Within the first week, you know, that, first of all, I had never had, you know, big time colleges, you know, trying to get a hold of us as far as our players. You know, we just never had those guys. And, man, I got a call from UT before he even got there. You know, so this guy's an 8th grader. You know, I'm getting a call from this guy. So I'm like, oh, wow. But, man, the very first week that we actually had Gerald, we're going through stuff, and of course, you know, I'm getting on him in practice because I'm definitely not one of those guys that want to be like, you know, cater to the stud and say, okay, what you're doing is great, but at the same time, the guy over here that's not as good did the same thing, and I'm getting all over him. I'm not that guy, you know. So I had to get on him a few times, and he literally texted his mother saying, "I don't think Coach Hub likes me." You know, so that, you know, that started the relationship off, you know, really well, because I ended up talking to mom and all that stuff, you know, so it was good. Gerald's awesome. You know, he's a specimen, you know, a guy like that, as long as he is, and, you know, and is athletic. You know what Gerald is, his biggest weakness that he has always had, and I think he's through it, you know, is he just at times, you know, like we're talking about being mentally tough, you know, and going hard all the time. Yeah. You could tell whenever he wasn't going hard, you know, he could turn it on and all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, here we go. But then there's times when it's like, man, you got to go, you know, but that was it for him, is developing his motor, you know, and I think as time went on, and it was late, to be honest with you, you know, it was late before he actually figured it out. And some will say he didn't really figure it out until he got to UT. And that's part of the reason, you know, he struggled his first year. Yes, he had injuries and all that stuff, but I talked to Shaka himself, and Shaka said, he told me at the very first beginning of that first year, he said, Coach, he's probably not going to play that much. He hadn't figured it out, you know, and you know, and he did, you know, he was having a really good this year. Then he got hurt again. But it's the mental aspect of the game, you know, that he had a problem with. You know, he had all the tools, you know, being able to, you know, jump out of the gym, rebound, and when he decided to go, he could flat out go, you know. But it's the mental aspect of the game is what he had to get better at, and I think he's reached that point finally.
Nice, that's awesome. One more question before we call this one a day. But you guys been watching the Jordan documentary, the Bulls documentary?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Right. So just talk a little bit about, you know, one of the episodes that really keyed on Dennis Rodman, right? You know, aside from all the crazy stuff that you saw Dennis Rodman do and the partying and all that, you know, what are some of the takeaways that you think maybe would be beneficial for kids? Just seeing how he was the ultimate role player, you know, and he owned it. You know, he said, you know what, I used to study hours of film on guys' offensive habits, and I used to spend hours in the gym just rebounding, studying the trajectory of the ball, right, from different angles. I mean, what are some things you think that were important takeaways from that aspect?
To me, I mean, you have to be a student of the game. You have to be. We talk about that all the time. Be a student of the game. And, and the crazy part about it for me is when you ask a kid, after a game, hey, how'd you play? How'd you play? The first thing that's going to come out of their mouth is how many points they scored. And I'll catch my freshmen after games, especially the B games, because I don't see them that much. How'd you play? And they'll tell me how many points I had. I said, that's great, but how'd you play? What else did you do? And they don't realize, that there are other things. When it comes down to a team playing the game, you have to have those role players. And the hardest part about that is getting them to realize how important it is of the role that they play. Yeah. It's real hard to get in their head that they played extremely well because they had 10 rebounds, 6 assists. Compared to their 2 points. They had 2 points, and now they're thinking that they didn't play very well. Yet you've accounted for 20 other points, at least because of the assists that you had. Absolutely. So, and the rebounds that you had and all that stuff. So that's to me, that's the hardest part, is to get them to realize how important it is, as a role player. And I'm sorry, whether it be the Pistons, the Bulls, whoever, they're not as good. Even the Spurs, they're not as good without Rodman, getting 15, 20 rebounds, a game. I can tell you there's been times when we've had teams, and I said, I call him the Windex guy. We need a glass cleaner, and if we don't have those guys, then it makes it hard. I mean, we really didn't have that guy this year, and it hurt us. So it's very, very, very important for people to realize, what their role is and to accept it. And that's the thing about Rodman. He accepted his role and kind of built off of it. It's hard to get those guys that you don't get guys that come in and go, Coach, I'm gonna rebound everything. Yeah. That's what you want to hear, but you don't hear that. They all want to score. They all want the glamour spots. It's kind of like if you relate to football, you got the guys, the running backs that run all those yards, but those guys in the front that develop those holes, you're not going to go anywhere without those guys,
Right. Yeah. I'm one of the guys that has not started it yet. I'm a single track guy, and I got to fit. I only got so much time for television with all these little youngsters running around this house. And so I generally, I do a little bit of work on the character stuff when the kids go to bed. And then when I finish Ozarks, my wife, matter of fact, she walked out the other day and said, the Michael Jordan show is going to be on Netflix starting, I think, this week. And so I told her exactly. I said, hey, that's good, because that way I can catch up with it, because I'm kind of one track. Once I start something, I want to finish it, and then I start the next one. But to go back to what y'all said about Rodman and his trajectory, I'd read that about him before. I don't know where it was, but I know I had read something about him, about how he was so good about angles and the trajectory of the ball. He knew where it was going. And it's so funny because, playing and coaching with Coach Wacker, those were like the little things that he used to talk about all the time. He's so fun to talk to, just like it's fun to talk with you guys and all the things that you've already done, Marcus, with the people you've talked to, is how detailed oriented the good ones are. Mm-hmm. It's such a big deal to worry about the little things, and that's such a big deal. It's so true. This is the whole goal of what we're trying to find out, is know yourself. Teaching them this quote, know what you can do and know what you can't do. You don't have to do it all. That's what your teammates are for. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing more important than your glue guys, because the best team, as we all know, is the best players that play together. Mm-hmm. And it can't be everybody shooting the first available shot. Yeah. Because that's not what it's for. You're going to need a screener, and you're going to need a guy, and that's a good thing. Like you said, Lonny, is when you walk out and you can tell a lot about a kid by, what'd you think? And, the better ones, they say stuff like, I could have done more, Coach. I mean, I love that answer, when I hear a kid say that. And then, you get your responses, I didn't score enough. Well, maybe that's not your role. Yeah. And that's what, to go back to the whole culture thing and everybody understanding who they are and where they fit in. that's if you could figure it out, you'd be rich, man. If you can, that's the hardest part, man. I'd retire today. I'd write down the foolproof book of teaching players how to accept their roles. Yep. And that's always the hard work in our job. It comes down to trust. And that's where, we're constantly working on that. Give me a better person, you got a better player, right? And so how do you get them better? Well, first of all, they got to trust you. That kid that I asked to why he's doing what he's doing and mom's in jail and dad don't give, well, I got to build some trust because he's got adults in his life that he don't trust. Yep. And that's, the most important thing for these teams are, and you all know this, I'm not cracking on anything y'all don't know, is putting them in the right spots and finding the guys that are the glue guys. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have it, that's going to make for a tough season. Yeah. When it comes down to teams that you have to beat to get in. And that's kind of where I've been at, in my career is, we've been right there, right there. And so it's got to come down to digging a little bit deeper and making sure that we're mentally tough enough to win those close ones. And that's what we're committed to, so.
I mean, I don't think people realize, young players especially, how my dad walking by, how impactful they can be without necessarily having to score the ball, right?
Right.
There's so many more intangibles to the game.
Before we finish, I want to thank y'all for sending Wagner to our district. Just anything to help y'all out.
Thank you. Right? Thank you very much. And with open arms, right?
Yeah.
No, hey, man. Our district was fun. Your district is going to be tough next year. Lonny,
it's going to be there again. Yeah, man. You know what? We're used to it. It's our district is it's a dogfight, man. You can't just show up and beat anyone. You got schools like Smithson Valley on the rise. Who had a really, really good year. So it's going to be interesting.
All right. Well, hey, good luck, everybody. We just had our new district meeting, and you know what? And thanks for doing this, Lonny and Coach Alvarado, Marcus, for setting this up.
Thank y'all.
But just getting a chance to we had to do this through the computer, and just briefly getting to meet all those new coaches in that new district that we're in. Just the small 45 minutes to an hour we spent, it just reassured what you're doing with this, Marcus, is there are so many good people in coaching. Like a lot of these guys, this is the first interaction I've had with them. It was good. So, keep doing what you're doing, Marcus, and getting it out there. And now after I'm done with this tonight, I'm going to watch all those ones that you sent. So now all the anxiety of first little Zoom thing, guys, is over with.
Yes.
I
appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, I know, and everybody's got their schedule in their days, so you guys taking time out to talk basketball and life with us, it's I really appreciate it. I convinced Cliff. I texted Cliff, and he said he's going to hop on one on Thursday, so I'm going to get Coach Ellis on there, see what he's talking about with his new role and life. Yep. And
I'm glad to be rid of him too.
I'll forward that message along to him on Thursday.
Yes.
All right, guys. Appreciate you.
Y'all take care. Appreciate it.
Okay, see you.